Go ahead.
I think he was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was playing with more of a short. I want to get them to the point where we can talk about it a little bit deeper. It's a rapid and long-lasting technique for balancing the mind-body relationship.
Say that one again.
It's a rapid and long-lasting technique for balancing the mind-body relationship.
Okay, the only thing I would ask about that is, at least in the concept I'm putting forward, I don't see a bridge. It is that you are trying to explain what it is, but there isn't a bridge there that bridges from what their existing familiarity is. Or try it again. Let me see if I hear it.
There isn't a pure bridge, but I wanted to get the mind-body. You know, to me, a few years ago, if I thought mind-body, to me that was kind of the bridge, being outside of looking in as the mind-body. That almost sounds.
Okay, read it again.
It's a rapid and long-lasting technique for balancing the mind and mind-body relationship.
Okay. I would take
5 years ago, I didn't have the foggiest clue about the mind-body relationship, except that everybody was talking about it, and I knew something was screwed up.
Yeah, and while people in this room are familiar with mind-body relationships, not all clients are. And to some clients, mind-body is new age, and they will resist it. So you need to take your client from where they are at the moment to build the bridge. To me, that's sort of like, I mean, it's very effective to say that EFT is an emotional version of acupuncture. That's very effective for people who understand acupuncture. To use your phrase would be very, very effective for people who understand mind, body, and have some familiarity with that, and it's a positive familiarity. For those that don't, you're introducing a phrase they may rail against. You see what I mean? Okay. So you want to know where the client's coming from. Like, what kind of therapy have you had in the past? Okay, well, I've done so and so and so. Well, this is like that except so and so. And we had a mind-body element. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
This is a really dumb idea. Anybody here have a TV? Okay. I want you to imagine you're sitting at home watching your TV, a highly technical piece of equipment. And suddenly the picture or something goes on the fritz. What's the first thing you do? Probably go up and fiddle with the knobs a little bit. And when that doesn't work, what's the next thing you do?
You hit it.
Start tapping on it, right? Banging it. And as technical as that piece of equipment is, amazingly, many times it works. Well, guess what? The human body, as technical as it is, it works. You want to see? You want to try it?
Another bridge for that might be something like, do you know how the body is also an electrical system? It's like a TV set. You got to tap it sometimes to make it work. I mean, that's just I made that up. Okay. Ooh. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's a challenge. I came up with one I would never use, but just since this is a brainstorm, it's like Prozac or whatever the drug of choice is, but without the side effects.
Oh, okay.
And the other one was.
I wouldn't necessarily publish that or to talk to
only in the brainstorming.
Yeah, or talk to MDs about it or something like that. You're just having trouble, but go ahead.
Yeah. Would be, you know how clearly you can often see and solve other people's problems. Well, this technique gives you that same clarity on your own issues. So.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Building bridges, I think, is incredibly important. I think it's one of those things that we really need. I mean, it would be well worth your while to sit down and spend an hour a day for a week or so as you visit with your clients and other people you're trying to explain this to. Listen to where they're coming from. Listen to what's familiar to them. And then you might write down what's familiar to them. And then build your own set of bridges for these things. Build your own set. Okay, and so whoever's talking to you, you can say it's this, it's like this only, but use this format or some other format you want. But I think it's very, very important because the human system works this way. You simply must bridge from what they're familiar with to where you're going. Otherwise, you're going to have difficulty in having them refer it to somebody else, explain it to somebody else, etc. Go ahead.
I just thought in Oprah's magazine, I think it was in December, there was a full-page ad for SAMe. I don't know if you know what SAMe is or not. It's a new natural substance that people are using for depression and muscle aches and pains. And the full-page ad said, "It's like reliving your first kiss." And I thought, no way.
Okay. Who's? I think you were next. Were you?
Yeah, I had a thought of a bridge, and I figured I would try it out.
Sure.
You know all the self-help books, and the focus is on mind over matter. You know how hard it is sometimes to get your mind on the matter to get other things out of the way. Well, this is a way to help you get those things out of the way so you can put your mind on the matter.
Okay. Good. Good. All right.
Before EFT, I showed my granddaughter acupressure spots she could rub for anxiety or this or that. And when she wanted the explanation, I gave her a little bit about the electrical system, but I said, honey, they're your magic buttons. And I think this would work really well on kids.
For a young kid who doesn't have a whole bunch of, it's got to be familiar to me, that's great. Magic buttons.
Second thought, of course, I live in Southern California and everybody does everything, and but internal feng shui or emotional feng shui.
For those familiar with feng shui, yes. Yes, for those emotional feng shui. For those familiar with feng shui, yes.
People in Louisiana know about feng shui now. It's on TV.
Great. Some do and some don't. But the important thing is you've got to bridge from where they're coming from. If somebody doesn't know feng shui, have never had it, maybe just kind of generally heard about it, that won't be as effective as something else might be.
Yeah, for that crowd, though.
Yeah, for that crowd, sure, sure. Go ahead.
I never hide EFT. I tell people exactly what I'm doing. I never feel as though I need to because there's been so much more published on it. You have your website. You can go to Amazon.com and you can just type in Emotional Freedom Technique and you come up with Fred Gallo's books and the Montroses books and everything else. So when I introduce what I do with folks in my practice, I tell them that it's EFT. You may not have heard of this, but it's very much the way that chiropractic was back in the 1970s, where chiropractors were considered to be kind of like quackish, now everybody, and it's covered by health insurance. I said you may not be familiar with it now, but it's just like the way the chiropractic was back in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit. Thank you for that. But something else you can do, and I asked Kate Sorensen, who was doing our bookstore back there, to give me, this is a stack of books that are written on tapping techniques, okay? The actual number of books written would go from here to probably there. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of books written on EFT and related tapping techniques. This leans upon one of the techniques I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if you want to send some authority and some social proof into your persuasion techniques, you can just show them a stack of books.
I actually have all my books totally displayed so that they see everything.
It's great to put them in the waiting room, right along with the videotape you have in there, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time they get in your office and they see all these books and everything else, I mean, this kind of thing is one of these automatic responses that we have, like it's written on the walls. If it's somehow written in all those books, damn, it's got to be good. You know, I mean, there's authority there. It's an easy decision to make. So you make it really easy for them. Okay? Go ahead, Myron.
Sonia has asked me to read this because she was uncomfortable bringing it up to the microphone.
Okay.
She wrote something out. Sometimes the bridge needs to respect the perception of the client. EFT tends to be a quick therapy, and at least in Brazil, most clients need to build a deep and long connection with the therapist and feel scared if we speak of a technique that will heal them too quickly and release them of coming to the therapist's office. In this case, I introduce EFT like a method to facilitate free associations and going deeper into issues.
Okay, that's great. And what's beautiful about that is what Sonia did was she took the needs of the client where they have very long-term needs. That's the familiar thing they have to have and bridged over to that. Okay, go ahead.
I live in the Bay Area, which is one of the most, this works really well with therapized populations, people who are, well, I live in the Bay Area where people are pop psychologized and therapized up the wazoo. And I actually heard this analogy used years ago about EMDR, but it works, I think it's as equally, if not more applicable to EFT. Somebody said, you know how, and it's about therapy specifically, you know how therapy just kind of rearranges the emotional furniture? Well, this clears it out. So people can, People who've been in a lot of years of therapy can
Yeah.
relate to that image.
Yeah. Or one thing I might...
Or not even the emotional furniture, just the
One thing
furniture.
one thing that comes to me is do you know how... I'm going to have to rephrase that a little bit because I remember all the words. But you know how conventional therapy rearranges the furniture? Yeah, what was I going to say? This technique clears it out. Well, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, whatever. It'll show up again, I hope. I hope. Okay, I want to, how much time do we have for the break? 10 minutes, okay. I want to shift. We're going to have a break in 10 minutes, folks. I want to make sure I cover certain things in here, okay? Now, I talked the other day about the value of doing group sessions, and I forgot the way I worded it, but one of the things that I said was that if you... How did I say that? I'll just say it differently. The value of doing group work is so high that if you're not doing it, I think you're missing something big, because you can do more work, you can deliver more value to people per hour that you spend doing your work by doing it in groups than you could ever possibly hope to do one-on-one. You can, with these techniques, you can take care of 30 people at a time in a room. I've done this stuff with 80 and 100 people in a room. And if you spent 3 hours, in a group session with 30 people and charge them $50 each, which we talked about the other day, that's $1,500 for what, 3 hours? Do that 4 times a week. That's $6,000 a week, and after a while, you can pay your rent. Okay. But the advantages there are huge. Now, what I was discussing at that point was creating or doing group work where people are all in a room with you. Okay. So you come in a room, and then you do your tapping, go around the room, pick out issues, and so on. Now, there's another way to do it, which is even more rewarding, although it's different and strange to some of you anyway, and that's to do it by telephone. When you do it by telephone, do you not expand the geographical area from which you can draw your clientele? Do you not expand it to the entire state you live in if you're in the United States, for example, or the entire country if you're in some other country, etc.? I've got to give you a little caveat here. When you do things by the phone, there are some states that have some laws, I understand, that if you cross state lines, then supposedly you may have violated some licensing or other law or something. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to tell you about. I'm not going to advise you on that. But you can certainly stay within your own state, as far as I understand that. Okay. But when you do that, you open up other things because you can get on all kinds of email lists that are really easy to get on. And you can go to news groups and things like that where people have all these focused problems. I mean, I can't tell you how many news groups are on things like depression, for example, and MS, and cancer, and things like that. They're forever talking about these things, and there's tons of people on them, okay? And so you can put in your own thoughts on there. You have to do it tactfully, by the way. You can't just put in some crass commercial. You get kicked out of there in a hurry. But you got to schmooze yourself way in there, give value, etc., and eventually you'll get your personality known. And from those places, which have scads of people, I'm talking about thousands of people that have these problems, you can start doing specialized telephone consultations. Now, Paul, why don't you come up? Paul Cutright does this for a living. Come on up, Paul. In fact, I have a microphone here with your name on it. Put that on there someplace and okay,
you put that on someplace else.
Okay, I'll do it like that.
Okay.
Say 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
You hear him all right?
Is that okay?
Okay, all right. Well, tell him what you do.
I do it on the telephone.
Yeah, you actually teach EFT.
Yes, I do.
To people on the telephone.
I do.
And you do group work with the people right on the telephone.
Yes.
Yes.
I started training people in EFT on the telephone before I ever did a live training. So I've probably been training people on the telephone for 3 years, well over 100 people, mostly in the coaching community, although there have been lay people and therapists in my classes as well. It's a 4-hour training, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. And I begin with what Gary calls mechanical EFT. I teach them that in the first session, and they have a whole week to go practice. And I say, you'll be producing results immediately after the first class. And by the time we're done, you'll be doing shortcuts and intuitive EFT. And so, I mean, there are people in the room who I taught who are using it regularly in their coaching practice. Now, working on the telephone requires a different set of skills because you can't see the people, obviously. So if they raise their hand, it isn't going to do any good. You have to have a way of communicating those visual cues, and it takes a little bit of practice. But it's really worth learning how to do. Now, I also do an introduction to EFT that I promote on our website, other websites. Somebody mentioned teleclass.com, and it's called Fear Blaster with an exclamation point. Have any of you ever seen that on teleclass.com? Anybody in here? And I generally get anywhere from 5 people to 25 people in a 1-hour class. And I have a little rap that I do. And then I tell them when they come to the class that they're going to have an experience. This is not a training. It's not something where they need to bother to take notes. But they should come with an issue that they would like to address. It could be a fear of flying, fear of public speaking. A lot of people who are starting a coaching practice and they have fears about putting it out, about their business, talking to people about it, picking up the telephone, and it stops them. And I say, this is ideal for getting over that. Come to the class, you can have an experience of addressing your own fear, phobia, anxiety, whatever it is. And I don't even need to know what it is. So you'll not be asked to reveal anything that would be embarrassing or personal. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer who would be willing to share. And I ask everyone else on the class to follow along while I work with the volunteer. And you just use the phraseology I'm using relative to your own issue. And I say you might get distracted by what I'm saying, and if you do, that's fine. Just follow along anyway to kind of get a sense of what the procedure is. And it's absolutely amazing, phenomenal what happens. I have people who come with like headaches. One of the most recent ones I had was a lady who had she had panic attacks when she went to sleep at night. And she shared that this was from having been molested when she was little. And all of the symptoms of her molestation were duplicated when she went to sleep. The panic, the fear, the not breathing, the rubbery legs, like she couldn't get away. So we did the procedure, go, well, you know, gee, I hope this works. This is, you know, you never know. And she sent me, she felt fine. She went from a 10 to a 0. And I take a poll of the other people in the class. What number did you start with? Where did you get to? I let them know it's fine if the number goes up, if it stays the same, whatever happens is fine. Because we're just here to learn, and anything that happens will contribute to our learning together. And she sent me an email the next day and said for the first time in more years than she could remember, she slept through the whole night. Her son even came and got into bed with her, which normally wakes her up and throws her into a panic. She didn't even realize he was there until the morning. The next thing she knew after she went to sleep was the alarm went off. So, and she lived in some other state. There are people there from England and Australia and all over the US and Canada. It is such a powerful, cost-effective way to reach a lot of people.
Yeah, there's another way of doing that, and that would be rather than coaching somebody. I'm talking about maybe the therapist now wants to get a number of people out there that have issues.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to give you my way, and if you want to augment that, please do, okay?
Sure.
So you get the people on the telephone, and let's say you have a specialized group, and let's say you're talking about rape trauma, okay? And so you could have them tune in on one specific event, you know, with the rate program, make a movie of it if you wish. You can talk them through the whole process you've seen us do and you all know how to do here. But you're talking, you give me everybody instructions on there, and then you talk them through it. Now you say tap here, and just go through the whole procedure, you know, all the words and everything else. Everybody's tapping simultaneously. Just do it 3, 4, 5, you know, rounds, so you make sure you're stepping on everything, because you're not one-on-one with these people, at least yet. And then you can have them, you know, start chiming in about what's going on. You know, mine's fine, yeah, amazing, but I'm still having a problem. You can go one-on-one. Everybody else can tap along with that person. You can get a tremendous amount done with that, and that's the simplest way to do it. Very simple way. Just take yourself a specific event, make a movie of it. Let's do even our. In fact, you know, on the telephone, I would be tempted to do mostly the Taylor's trauma technique, because you don't know who you're talking to many times, and you probably also ought to need to qualify people if you're getting into really intense stuff and so on, and make sure, but before you have anybody on your list, that they're not multiple personality and schizophrenic and some things that maybe you shouldn't be dealing with on telephone. But the vast majority of people telephone works with fine.
Yes,
you know?
it does.
Yeah.
And it's very rewarding, too. It's very satisfying to then get emails from people that you've never seen and maybe never will see, whose life may have been changed forever as a result of something like this. But it is a distinct set of skills working on the telephone that you need to practice.
And it may be unusual to you because if you haven't done it before, but it's really quite easy to do. I mean, I just started doing it one day, you know, and after a while, your ear gets as tuned in as your eyes do when you're one-on-one with them.
Exactly.
You know? Let me ask back here.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Paul. I'm actually one of Paul's clients, and I was introduced to EFT from Paul's Fear Blaster class. And I was one of his, the people that he actually worked with on the phone. And I had such dramatic results from working with him. And I'm a coach, and I went specifically because I had a fear of promoting myself as a coach. And I had such a profound experience from that, I immediately then signed up for his next class and then became his client. So it's also a way of building business. But I just want to say it was incredibly powerful. I'm in Connecticut, and he's in San Diego. And tonight, or this weekend, was the first time that we've met after working together for a year.
Thank you.
What I want to emphasize, though, is the ease by which, once you get used to this, by which you can gain clientele just by getting on these news groups out there and giving yourself credibility out there. Because after a while, you start giving... You can't go on there as a super salesman. They'll kick you off in a hurry. But if you're one of them, you know, and they give credibility after a while. And how many are on these lists? I think I saw a depression list one time. I think it had over 10,000 people on it, and that was a few years ago. Okay, I mean, there's this. It's more than you can handle. Out there. Okay, where was our question here? Come on, Carol, and stand close to the mic, could you?
The question that I have is to go into more details as to the financial, practical aspects of it. Talking about the possibility of consents, how do you pre-evaluate your people? How are you doing this? Are you doing it by coaching? How do you get paid? What's going on with master charge or not? Do you get checks ahead of time? All the very mundane but really important aspects of a practice.
Okay.
Briefly.
Okay. Several people have asked, what is this thing about teleclasses, and are you on the computer or the telephone, or what is it exactly? I'll do my best to explain it. A teleclass is a class that is conducted over the telephone. Telephone. Okay? And it's you and up to 29 other people. Okay? You can have, the technology is called a telephonic bridge. I don't know why. That's just what it's called. And bridge for short. You can have 30-person bridges, 150-person bridges, and higher. For an interactive class, you probably don't want to have more than 30 people. For anything larger than that, it's basically a lecture format. So all of our classes are 30 people or fewer because we like to have interaction, especially if you're doing EFT. Of course, you have to have interaction. we have a bridge line that we lease. It's available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we pay a monthly fee for that, for leasing it. They've gotten to be quite hard to come by. I don't know why that is either. The telephone companies only had so many, and now they're pretty much leased out. We got ours from a broker. We rent ours to other coaches for $20 an hour. That's basically how we do that. There are other larger organizations like Bob Allen's Multiple Streams of Income, and he'll have several hundred people in a class, and everybody's muted out, and you just listen to him and the people that he's interviewing. Does that answer some of your questions? Now, there are also classes that you can do by telephone that's tied into the internet. And I've taught some EFT classes where I've designed a PowerPoint presentation. So everybody is on their computer, on the telephone, and I control their browsers with my computer. So I walk them through the sequence of slides so they're seeing notes about EFT. I'm not too crazy about that myself, but some people like it, and so I've experimented with it. So those are the modalities that are involved. It's all done over, it's marketed over the internet. People pay by credit card over the internet. Our business is all internet. I'm not interested in people really that I have to mail to because it's too expensive. Email is free. So we have an internet-based business, and people can also sign up for classes at our website and pay at our website. Pretty straightforward. Just incidentally, the bridge technology is like a teleconference. It's one phone number that everyone calls into. So the cost that they incur in addition to the cost of the class, or if it's a free class, is the long distance cost, and that's all. And our number is a Nevada number. There are Nevada numbers and Florida numbers.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. One question. I have a question for you, since I have you.
Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Where am I? Yes, dear.
I don't know if any of you would be interested in to know this, but I would really be interested to know, and I don't know if this fits in with your agenda of what you had to do next, but
hurry up.
I'm curious what your vision for EFT is. As the father of EFT and creator of this, is that something that you guys would be interested to know, what Gary's vision of this is, where he sees it going and all of that? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Paul. The more global vision is a very spiritual one. It is my view, though, while we have workshops like this, et cetera, and we talk about the mechanics and how to deliver it, et cetera, the bigger picture, to me, is all that we're doing is, or the primary thing that we're doing is eliminating barriers to true spirituality, to true forgiveness. When someone is beset with anger and trauma and fears and guilts, their ability to forgive and be spiritual and peaceful is hindered, is it not? Okay. To the extent we can remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or all of them, do they not have a better opportunity to grow spiritually? Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, we're headed towards God. Okay. Now, how we do that, you know, I mean, we're on the ground floor of a healing high-rise. I've said that many, many, many times. Okay. And right now we're perfecting our craft, and some are real masters at this, and others are getting there, and so on. And the whole thing is spreading. I have purposely not set up things like this is the way to do it. I have purposely set this up as a tool rather than a protocol, so you can blend it with whatever you want to do. It is simple enough for the layperson to do. I do have some things I absolutely want to get in front of you. I want to get from me to you business-wise. And if you look at number K on our techniques, it says use specialization. That's something I've hit on before in some of my other tapes on building a thriving practice on our website, etc. But I think it's important Because what most therapists do, what most healing practitioners do, or I should say most psychotherapists do, I'll put it that way, is they tend to be jacks of all trades, we cover everything, rather than to be a specialist. Now, we are, at least in the United States and in most civilized societies or industrial societies, we are in an age of specialization. We have specialists for just about everything, okay? In the medical profession, you have a specialist for everything under the sun. If you have an eye problem, you do not go to an OBGYN, for example, and on you go. We have specialized products. You know, Polident is a specialized product. Preparation H is a specialized product. Okay, you look in your medicine cabinet, you'll see all these things, and if you see Polident and Preparation H, well, you got specialized products. Just don't mix them up. Or you get or your teeth will itch and you get a tight little walk, you know. But like this, huh? One of the resistances, as I put this out, you know, from people in the profession, is that, well, how can I just limit my field if I'm a specialist in just war trauma, okay? If I specialize in just war veterans, I'm letting go of all the rest of the possibilities out there. On the other hand, someone who has war trauma and PTSD, etc., would they not rather see a specialist than somebody who does everything? I mean, to them, they'd rather see the specialist. They go to a medical physician for a specialty. Why? And they're conditioned to do that. So if somebody specializes, to them, their quick way, their shortcut way of making a decision here is to say, oh, they specialize, they're better than somebody who doesn't. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the quick shortcut way of making a decision. Well, what's interesting, if you use a little creativity, you can specialize with these techniques in damn near everything. Amen? Amen. Okay. Can you give relief to headaches frequently with this? Yes. Oftentimes where nothing else will. Can you be a specialist in headaches in that degree? Okay. Can you help someone with rape trauma? Okay. Can you help someone with a fear of heights? Are you not a specialist in that? Can you do a much better job in that than conventional therapy? Can you not? Can you specialize in all three things? Now, you can specialize in 20 things or 40 things or 80 things if you want to. Now, one of the built-in resistances is, well, yeah, but if I say I'm a specialist in this, I can't turn around and say I'm a specialist in that, because that's somehow incongruent, or that's not honest, or something like that. Okay? Writing on your walls, folks. That's very true. Writing on your walls. Okay? You can specialize in lots of things. Those of you who are parents, are you not experienced parents? Can you specialize in parenting? Do you know things about parenting that non-parents don't? Yes. Okay. Now, I put down here under K, I say use computer to print out several brochures for broad-based specialization. In other words, here's the idea. You can specialize in just about anything. So pick out several specializations, okay? And pick out that number of specializations that you say, well, as long as I stay within this many, then I'm honest, okay? And I'll be okay, and the world won't criticize me, etc. So pick out 3 if you need to, or 5 if you need to, or 12 if your belief system allows you that, or 27 if you allows you, or whatever, okay? But see, you can create a brochure instead of one brochure for everything. Create a specialized brochure for headaches. Create a specialized brochure for rape trauma. Create a specialized brochure for the fear of flying. A specialized brochure for the fear of public speaking. And what you're going to do is you're going to start attracting those people who will say, ah, I want that person. Now, what you can do so nicely with computers is you can make these brochures, you can make all of them, and then you can customize them if you wish. And they're very easy to print out once you've done them. And so you can have 12 specialized brochures, if you will, that you could put out various places and hand out to the various places you talk, et cetera, et cetera. And you can have specialized groups when you do group trainings. You can have, Tuesday night is for women's issues. By the way, Does that sound like a very specialized issue, like a very specialized area? It sounds very specialized, doesn't it? It's a very global area because there's all kinds of things that fall into the category of women's issues, correct? Okay. And so almost, with one specialization, by the way, with one specialization, you've all of a sudden addressed half the population, haven't you? Okay. What else did I put down here? Phobia, stress, anxiety, personal performance. That's a big, wide field all by itself. That covers everything from music to sports to speaking to all kinds of things. But anyway, I wanted to get that one out in front of you because I think that's important. I think that's important. I think your business will start rising once you get to the point where you have several specializations. Okay. Now, I want to shift. There's a book you absolutely must read. It's a must thing you must have in your library. And this has to do with ethical persuasion. I'm going to give you some techniques for how to address things with your clients ethically, so you can be much more persuasive in the way that you do it. This book is called Influence by Robert B. Cialdini, C-I-A-L-D-I-N-I, Ph.D. Well, it's written down here already under persuasion. I'm going to go over some of the features that Dr. Cialdini puts here. First of all, I had lunch with Dr. Cialdini in 1986 in Hawaii. Fascinating man. And what he did was studied all these automatic responses people had, in the terms we've used here, the writings on their walls that make them respond automatically to something, the shortcut ways to do it, the easy way to make a decision, okay? And there's a lot of automatic things that we do. You do it, I do it, everybody does it, and if you don't know what those things are, you can very easily violate those rules and have them work against you, and you don't even know what the rules are. If you know what they are, you can just simply use them, flow with them, and your persuasion goes through the roof. Okay, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. But I want to cover one thing first. The term persuasion, for some, is a loaded term. For some, it means manipulation. How many heard manipulation? It's right on your walls when I said persuasion. Okay, so as long as you say to yourself, "Oh, persuasion is manipulation," then you're going to think persuasion is bad. You're not going to listen. You're going to tune out what I'm going to say. Persuasion can be manipulation. It can also be a duty. Now, do you not have a duty to persuade somebody to use EFT? Do you not have a duty to do that? If you don't do that and they go do something else, whatever it may be, have you not been derelict in your duty, if you will? Is it not better to be persuasive than to somehow or other blow the whole thing and have somebody go to somebody else? Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, while there are 6 or 7 features that Dr. Cialdini has here, I'm going to romance 2 or 3 of them for you in the time left. And the first one is called the law of contrast. And that has to do with the order of presenting facts is very important. Now, see, you can present some facts, but what you may not realize is the order in which you present them is very important in how well they are taken. That is, how persuasive they are. Here's an example. I wrote this down. This is 8 on here. Do you know how therapy used to take months or years and cost tens of thousands of dollars? Now, notice the first thing I said in that is, it takes months or years, tens of thousands of dollars. Okay? In most cases, we can now do the same job in 1 to 5 sessions for under $1,000. Okay? Now, think about this for a moment. If this had been reversed, and if I said, you know, we can now do the same job, we can now do psychotherapy or healing in 1 to 5 sessions for under $1,000. You said that first, and then said, you know, by contrast, therapy usually takes several months to years, and it could cost as much as tens of thousands of dollars. Do you see a difference in persuasion there? See, what you've done by putting the higher one first is you set that in their minds as the comparison level. And then you come in with your level, which is far lower than that, and hence-wise it's much more persuasive, it's much more bargainish, if you will. Correct? But when you come in with your level first, your lower level first, and then you try to persuade them that, you know, that's not that's not as expensive as this higher level, it loses some of its punch. Do you see that? Because you have first conditioned their mind with the lower level. Okay. Now you can do it either way, but if you want to be persuasive, you need to do it the right way. You need to put the right thing first to make your comparison. Number B, it's easy to spend $10,000 for conventional therapy with little or nothing to show for it. I prefer to charge you $800 and give you a refund if you don't achieve your result. And you see the difference there? Okay, because you have, is that, by the way, is that a true statement? Is it easy to spend $10,000 for conventional therapy with little or no results? Is that a true statement? Have you lied to them? No, you've just simply taken that fact and put it first, and it's a true statement. You have manipulated nobody. Okay, and then you, after you've done that, then you come in with, I prefer to charge you $800 and give you a refund if you don't achieve your result. It makes your offer, if you will, much more palatable. Rather than just say, you know, I charge $800 and I'll give you a money back result. Now that's fine all by itself, but to precede it with the other true statement makes your comment much more viable, if you will. Here's something I might use, you know, just for selling the tapes that I sell on the internet. Like I say, attending a typical workshop often costs over $1,000 when you consider the workshop fee, airfare, hotel, etc. The tapes, however, are only $170. You see, we set the $1,000 level. It's a true statement, is it not? When you go to, in fact, this is a very low-cost workshop here. I set the price very low. Did many of you spend $1,000 to get here and hotel and everything else? It's a true statement, okay? But I put it first in this example. Okay, I'll do it again. Attending a typical workshop often costs over $1,000 when you consider the workshop fee, airfare, hotel, etc. The tapes, however, are only $170, and they contain 2 workshops. The tapes, however, excuse me, and you can instant replay anything you want, and you can watch them whenever you want, and you can share them with your friends, and you can review them again and again anytime in the future. You see how that comparison is important? It's the law of contrast. You can either use it or ignore it if you want. And you can, if you don't know what it works, oftentimes you will make your offer, if you will, in a way that works against you, because you'll put the wrong thing first. Okay. D, 3 individual 1-hour sessions cost $225, whereas a 3-hour group session costs $50 and often gets the same result. You see? Very true statements, are they not? Okay. Why spend 2 weeks, months, or years, or do what you can do? Or to do what you can do in, to do what you can do in 1 or 2 sessions. I blew that, okay. I'm going to the next one. F, a good result, this is if you're going to address a whole group and you're going to do some group work, and you want to set the stage first about what they might expect. It goes like this. A good result, if we tap with this entire group for these issues, would be noticeable relief for 25% of the group, or the group participants. A superb result would be 40%. Now, that's a true statement, is it not, with most techniques? Okay, and then you proceed to generate 80 to 100%. Now, if I started off at saying, you know, we usually get 80 to 100%. That's what I started off saying. And then we go off and do our thing, and we get 70%. It looks bad, doesn't it? Because I promised 80 or 100. That's what I said. That's what I set the mind at, 80 or 100. And now we get a mere 70. Okay, and so it doesn't look very good. But if we take the true statement that really good results would be 25 to 40, and then we end up getting 80 to 100, you see the difference? Very important in how you present things to people. I want to show you a little example. You are seated in a unique seating arrangement, and when I realized that we had so many people here, and I also realized the size of these tables were as wide as they were, I suddenly realized I could not sit everybody in this room behind a table, you know, without putting some people in the hall or sending some people home, or making this whole thing theater style so you didn't even have a table. And I sent you an email on that. And about this time, this is about the time I was putting together some of this law of contrast. I thought I might as well use this idea and send you a little letter, okay? And I want you to listen to the letter, okay? The letter says, "Hi, Flagstaff attendees. I've had a seating problem that I need to share with you." Now, all of a sudden, I've told you we got a problem, right? So you're saying, problem? It's a true statement, is it not? Did I manipulate you? Yeah. No, but I'm putting the right... Cost of your workshop just went up. I originally set up our workshop for 150 attendees. As you know, we were overbooked within 48 hours, and the overflow boosted our number to 179. At first, I thought I could creatively arrange the seating so that everyone would be seated at a table for ease of note-taking, and with enough distance between people so as to create reasonable elbow room. We are providing many hours of instruction at this workshop, and your comfort will be important. Without comfort, the squirm factor will tend to erode your ability to learn. Now, what I've done with that paragraph is I've set up a problem, haven't I? And you as the reader say, oh, we've got a problem here, okay? Unfortunately, I just learned the hotel provides tables that are 2.5 feet wide instead of the standard 1.5 feet. Oh my, this sucks up a lot of room unnecessarily and means that either I must ask some people to stay home or I must cram everyone together, theater style, where there are no tables, just chairs in which you must squirm while taking notes in your lap. Okay? Either option is likely to give me a prominent place in some people's, how could you do this to me, self-talk. What to do. I've established the problem. Okay? I've put the problem first. And I've said in there true statements, I've got to send somebody home or theater style and all that kind of stuff. Okay? Then I said, I've noodled over this for several hours and fully landed on a solution that allows everyone good elbow room and access to a table for note-taking. The solution is to have seating on both sides of the wide tables instead of just one. By reorienting the tables, which may look unusual to you, we can completely avoid theater-style seating and not have to send anyone home. Phew. Okay, now, my alternative to writing that letter was to have you, would not say a thing, and have you walk in the door and see this strange seating and say, why can't I just have the table in front of me? That would have been the normal thing you would have expected, right? Okay? And so you would have come in here likely having had one thought in mind before you came in about this seating, about how good it was going to be, and you found something that was, in your mind, less desirable. And so you may bitch about the seating, at least at some level. You probably won't come up to me and hit me or anything. But somebody will say, what have I got to sit that way for? Okay? But instead, I set it up different. Did you see what I did? Did I manipulate you, by the way? Yes. I did?
You're into semantics.
What I did was used intelligently the law of contrast. You're going to sit that way anyway. You might as well find it more palatable. Correct? We can laugh about that, but I will tell you, I would study this book by Cialdini, and he goes on and on about the value of this and how to do it, etc. It's a very important thing, and we are forever making offers to people. If you're doing that as a therapist, any person in business is forever making an offer. You're forever asking somebody to do something or whatever. And you'll make it much more palatable if you pay attention to what you say first. Now, if you want to do it in an unethical way, you'll start lying up front about things that are not true in order to create some kind of contrast that really isn't so. You need to do it in a very ethical way. You need to state what is true. And it's a very simple thing to do. It's a very simple thing to do. But you need to develop the awareness of it. The awareness of it. Otherwise, you'll blow it all the time. I mean, why do it in a way that works against you? You're still using the law of contrast, by the way. So you have a choice to have it, use it against you or use it for you. It is in place whether you choose to use it appropriately or ignore it. It is still in place. People still will use that law of contrast to make their decisions in quick ways. Do you have a question? Myron, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a situation in my head. As I've been listening to you, I've been thinking something for myself, and I thought maybe it was true for everybody else, because there was a group over there, whether they were joking or not, that experienced it as manipulation. And so I thought what was bothering me about what you were saying, and I was thinking that when I was a kid, in order to make something more palatable, if you will, I got talked into, or the way words were, I was manipulated into a lot of stuff, and a lot of kids are. And kids grow up to be adults. And so the idea of persuasion, I just wonder for how many people, like, for instance, if my wife wants to move me slowly into an idea, it drives me right up a wall. She comes right out with the idea, and then, then I can say no.
Gary?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
I used that law intuitively when I was a kid, and I broke a plastic towel rack in the kitchen. And I knew if my mother came home from work and saw it, she'd yell and say, "Who broke this?" and be all upset. So I called her at work, and I said, "Listen, I did a horrible thing." She immediately pictured the house on fire. So then I said, "Well, the plastic towel rack broke." And she says, "Oh, that's no problem."
Sure, of course. Of course.
So all we're doing is putting it in a different context so that the perception has changed.
Yes. And by the way, if you hadn't said that first, I mean, she would have still used the law of contrast. Because when you broke the towel thing, and she saw it, she said, "Oh, compared to other things," she's saying, "this is bad." Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the law of contrast is always working. You didn't design it. It is there. You can either use it intelligently or ignore it. It's up to you. If you're going to say something, you got to stand up here. No. You got to be up here.
In his book on influence, he talked about the letter of the college girl to her parents.
Yeah, I was going to read that, but I don't have enough time. Yeah. I was going to read. I don't have enough time doing that. I have down here also two others: social proof and authority. They're almost obvious. I want to give you a little example, though, of another one still that I don't have listed down here, which is called the rule of reciprocation. Remember me with a $100 bill that I was handed out, and people just wanted to hand it back to me. You give them something, they have this built-in thing that they want to give it back to you, etc. This is a very powerful persuasion technique, but it is also a technique that is very easily manipulative. It is very easy to use it, if you will, in an unethical manner. And when you do, it will backfire on you, okay? And let me give you an example of how this is used unethically, or was used unethically. Many of you may remember the Hare Krishna, that would go through a religious organization that would have robes on and shaved heads and things like that, and they would go through airports, and they were trying to raise money, and they would hand you a flower. Okay. The first thing they did, by the way, they would go around and they would say, "Would you donate some money, to our organization?" And very few donations would happen. Then they realized if they go give somebody something, so they give somebody a flower, and they'll go hand somebody a flower. If strangers, just go hand them a flower, and the person got the flower and say, "Remember the Hare Krishna? Would you mind donating $1 or $2 or $3, to our organization?" And the percentage of people that would donate went up dramatically, several times. Most people donated something, as it turns out. And so they had enough money to buy buildings and everything else. Now, Dr. Cialdini is in the airports watching this happen. He's studying all this. And then what happens is he watches the people that have the flower, and they've paid their money. They don't want the darn flower. So what they do is they run around and they put it in the trash can and go on to their airplane or wherever they're going to go. One of the Hare Krishna people goes around to the trash cans, picks up the flowers, okay, and they recycle them. They know exactly what they're doing. They know when they give you something, you have this built-in need to reciprocate, okay? Now that is an unethical use of it. Or at least it could be argued that that's a very unethical use of it. Another interesting study that was done was I don't have these figures exact, but I'm going to give you the essence of it. They'd go in the telephone book and pick out people at random at Christmas time and send out a whole bunch of Christmas cards from Joe Smith, okay? So these people get these Christmas cards, and what do? Most of them send a Christmas card back to Joe Smith they don't even know. Okay? Because why? The rule of reciprocation, the law of reciprocation is now in place. If I get something, I've got to somehow, I owe something back. See, if you're invited to dinner to somebody's house, do you somehow owe them an invite to dinner at your house? Somehow or other, you've got this built-in thing that says, because if you just only take, we have words for that. You're a moocher, okay? There's something wrong with you. So you don't want to be somebody who just only takes. You've got to make the item square. Now, I bring that up as probably the last thing we're going to talk about without a way to tell you exactly how to use that in your practice. Okay? However, I will tell you, when you give somebody a free session, do they owe you at some level? Are they somebody who will endorse you if you want them to? If you give somebody something for free, genuinely, by the way, for free, not I'm going to give this for free, but I'm going to come around the back door and I'm going to kind of get something out of you. When you do that, you're using it unethically. Okay. But when you are a free giver, then you build up a camaraderie with people that you don't have otherwise. Now, I built EFT on the rule of reciprocation without even realizing it. I knew what the rule was. I'd read this book long before EFT ever started. I just started doing it because I didn't really have to have the money and so on and so forth, so I just started putting it out. Now look at what's happened with that rule of reciprocation, all right? We filled this room up in 48 hours, okay? It's spreading faster than any of the other techniques in the energy therapy field. Why? There's a sort of a rule of, people like the idea of the flow of it. There's something nice about that. Do you get the idea of it? Okay? And it wasn't done purposely. Do any of you feel manipulated by me? No. Okay. Because it was genuine giving and flowing, is it not? Now let me ask you something else. While this is not necessarily a goal of mine, at this point, with all the camaraderie and the connection that I have with all the people as a result of the rule of reciprocation and giving stuff out, if I wanted to ask any one of you for a favor, do I have an open ear? Yeah, I do. If I wanted to build some grand business on this with a nice foundation that is now started, could I do it? Sure. Sure I could. There's a lot of things that could be done with that. The rule of reciprocation, if done ethically and from the heart and done properly, is very powerful in a subtle persuasion way. Very powerful. If you try to use it unethically, it'll turn around and bite you quick. Okay, because people will pick out easily and quickly that you're trying to manipulate them. Okay. So anyway, I want to make sure I got all that out in front of you. Now we have 4 minutes for questions. Here comes a question.
What was the pool table example that's in your notes?
Oh, okay. That has to do with contrast. Okay. One of the studies that was done was that people would come in to buy a pool table, and the salesperson would show them they had $1,000 pool tables and $3,000 pool tables. I think a $2,000 too as well. So the salesperson would come in on one of the studies and they would show them the $1,000 pool table. Okay? First. That's the first thing they would show them. Remember, the law of contrast is what do you show first. Okay? And so then they would calculate the sales they had, etc. And I forget. And later on, then they would try to boost them up to the $2,000 or $3,000 pool table. And I forgot the exact figures. I'm going to give you just approximates here. Like the average sale was like $1,200. Okay, so they sold mostly $1,000 pool tables with a few of the others to make the average $1,200. By contrast, they had another study where the first thing the salesperson did was show them the $3,000 pool table. Look right over look at this fine pool table, and look at the cloth on it. What do they do to sell pool tables? The average sale was more like $2,000. Okay, and why? Because you set in the mind first, $3,000 is what you pay for a pool table, and for them to pay $2,000 for a pool table is much more palatable. Okay, same thing happens with some clothing stores. You go in, and if the clothing store salesperson is using the law of contrast, they'll show you the most expensive clothing first. And then if you buy that, that's fine. If you don't buy that, you will more likely buy something more expensive than you would have if they showed you the least expensive first. That's just what happens. Okay. And then when you sell the more expensive business suit, for example, then it's much easier to sell the cufflinks and the ties and the shirts and all the accessories that go with it, because they're much lower cost, aren't they, than the suit itself. That's just what it's the law of contrast. So that is that manipulative? One could argue it. Is it reasonable business? Yeah. Are you really fooling somebody? No, you're just showing them the suit. You're just using the law of contrast as to what you're going to show them. Okay, what you're going to do first. Okay, same materials, Same products. Other questions? Go ahead, Paul.
Just a comment on that. Because I've read the Cialdini book too and applied those principles for marketing, to give people a choice of three things: the top of the line pool table, the middle pool table, and then the least expensive $1,000 pool table. Most people will buy the middle pool table because they don't want to appear. They know they can't afford the big one, but they also won't want to appear cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll buy the one in the middle, which most often is the one that they wanted to sell anyway.
Sure.
So you can design programs, like in therapy or in coaching, you can design a high-end program and a middle program and a low-end program.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience has been most people will buy the middle program.
Mm-hmm. You could do that. You could do. That's a good idea because in the therapeutic practice, you could have 3 levels of how you want to do business.
Right.
We could have a results only that costs this much, and we could have a 6 weeks program to fix your life that costs this much. Okay, and then we could have a $100 an hour thing over here.
Sure. And it really serves.
Sure.
My experience is that it really serves people in getting the kind of result that they came in to get.
Sure. And if you think that particular person really, because you know what you're selling, if you're selling psychotherapy, you know what your results are going to be with that person better than they do.
Absolutely.
And so if you really think they should have the 10-week program rather than the $100 an hour thingamajiggy, okay, then you are in their benefit using the law of contrast to show them the correct one first.
Right.
Okay. 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 It is now 9:46. We're a minute over. Oh. I don't know. It's rude. God, what a thrill it's been. I mean, it's an absolute thrill. I don't have any closing comments. We've already
Gary?
done it, Yes.
Gary in the back.
Yeah.
These have been some of the most phenomenal marketing comments, but in the words of the great philosopher, just do it. I think that was Nike who said that.
Sure, you got to do that one too.
Yeah. Would you anchor these and lead us in a final group tapping to anchor these comments and get out there and just do it?
Right. I've already been asked. Thank you. Okay. Even though I may resist some of these things. And even though I may think some of these things are wonderful and I'll get to them some other day, I deeply and completely accept myself for my built-in lethargy and my very good intentions. And I really do not expect all this stuff to gather dust. Typically when we go to a workshop, we take away 1 or 2 good ideas and we leave the rest on the table until someone else reminds us of it some other day and we spend another $1,000 to get reminded. I deeply completely accept myself. I may have barriers to using some of these business-related items because I don't have the experience yet. Because I'm still afraid of being outside of my comfort zone. And I'm not sure I really believe this idea about dreaming it first will actually shift my comfort zone. I understand the antenna, and it's really quite powerful. And I can create an antenna for anything I want simply by my own daydreaming. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow, or next week, or some other seminar, or maybe I'll go home tonight and I'll do a little daydreaming, and I'll get the ball rolling. I spent all kinds of money and time to be here. 9 hours a day. Hotel expenses. Airfare. Car rental. Ooh, food, yeah. And all of that. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let it sit on the table. I'm a dream away from getting this stuff started. Dream away. 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 I love you.